What is going on, guys? Welcome into Engage 8. We got a very, very, very good Monday Night Football matchup to wrap up for you. Bills, Jets. Jets end up getting a win in fantastic fashion, but unfortunately, we have to start on a little bit more of a sorrow note as Aaron Rodgers, and about 4 plays in for New York, goes down with an injury. It looks like he kind of got bit by the turf monster. X-rays were negative, and I put this in and says fears serious Achilles injury. That fear has been heightened as Robert Salah says they're going to get MRIs tomorrow to confirm what they already think, which is a ruptured Achilles, which would be a season ender for Aaron Rodgers. And at 40 years old, you start to question, is he going to be back next year for the Jets? I mean, what do you think about this injury, man?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely devastating for Jets fans, for Aaron Rodgers, for the Jets team, organization, everything. Just NFL and football in general. This is a guy that came over from Green Bay, spent his entire career there, comes over to New York, high expectations in New York with him at the helm and this young core group of guys they've got. And like you said, a couple plays in, this happens, and you got to feel for him. As far as his career and what goes on, I mean, he's a resilient guy. You got to imagine that he's going to come back from this and want to play next year. As far as the immediate impact, what do the Jets do from here? Do they go out and get somebody? Do they roll with Zach Wilson? It's going to be really interesting to see over the next couple of days what the direction that they decide to go into, because they could look into free agency or the draft next year and just see what they can get out of Wilson this year. I don't know. I know there's some names that you've thrown around, and obviously everybody wants to throw around Tom Brady, and I think it's a very crazy option there. Pretty unrealistic, but you never know. It would be one of the greatest comebacks ever to go to his team's arch rival, and I think it would be awesome to see. But that's a far-fetched option.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously it looks like they're going to go with Zach Wilson. That's what Robert Salah said in the press conference. But if things start to develop and we don't see Zach Wilson playing at the level that they want to be playing at, they could look at other options. Ones that come to mind for me in free agency, Carson Wentz is still available. I know we're not talking about like the idealist options here, but you're trying to pick up a starting quarterback in week 1. You're not going to have too many choices. So Carson Wentz is still available in free agency. And then after that, you really have to start looking at trades. 2 names that popped into my head immediately were Andy Dalton with Carolina. I know probably not going to happen since they do have Bryce Young in the building and they kind of want to have that veteran presence behind him, and they don't have another guy like that. And then also Jameis Winston in New Orleans is still there. They could trade for him. I don't really see the need for him. At this point, they do have Taysom Hill there as a third quarterback as well that they can use if they were to let Jameis go. And I know that that's not the most ideal scenario to have Taysom Hill play quarterback for an entire game. But if they can get a draft pick out of Jameis Winston, I think they do it. And just another thing that needs to be kept in mind here. The trade that happened to get Aaron Rodgers involved a conditional second-round pick that requires Aaron Rodgers to play 70% of snaps for that pick to become a first-round pick for Green Bay. Probably not going to happen at this point. So the Jets will retain their first-round pick in this year's draft. So maybe they are bad enough to get a quarterback, but this puts them right back where they were last year, where it's like, okay, what are we going to do at quarterback? We have all these, we have Garrett Wilson, we have Breece Hall, we have this fantastic defense that put on an absolute show tonight. Transition into our little game recap here. Jets win 22-16 was ugly from the Bills. Quite frankly, Josh Allen played very sloppily. Tyler's got a smile on his face because he was calling all offseason. He said, I think 15th, 16th in the power rankings, and they come out and against an Aaron Rodgers-less Jets team, against Zach Wilson, turned the ball over 4 times, I believe 3 times in the second half. I mean, go ahead, take your victory lap.
I mean, I'm not going to take my victory out because it's week 1, but I do, there's a reason I put a future on this team to miss the playoffs in a loaded AFC. Obviously, I couldn't have envisioned Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, so that obviously puts that into question a little bit. But I talked about it all offseason, how this is a guy, Josh Allen, who had the most turnovers in football last year, and I think we talked about he's had the most turnovers in football after concern. He's very, very careless with the ball. You also see him running. This guy doesn't get down. He tries to go for an extra yard. You're going to get the ball knocked out. You're going to get injured. Something's going to happen to you. You can't continue to take these hits when you have the option to just step out of bounds instead of trying to go for 1 extra yard when it's going to be, 2nd and 5 compared to 2nd and 4 or something. It's very careless football in my mind. And yeah, next week they got the Raiders. If they don't win that game, we are definitely going to be talking about this Bills team completely coming apart. And I've said they have plateaued. They got to the AFC Championship game every year since. They've been worse than that. They made it to the second round, I think, once or twice. They had the crazy game against the Chiefs. And you look at it, the last time we saw this team on the football field, they got the brakes blown off of them by the Bengals in the playoffs in Buffalo. This is what you have to show the week one after that was the last taste we had in our mouths of what the Bills were, was that game. And now this is how you follow it up. Man, there's a lot of question marks going on in Buffalo right now. And I just don't think the chemistry there, and I think it's just getting, you mentioned it, it's getting stale. I really think it is.
Yeah, I agree. Like we said that when we did the Bills power rankings episode, was it just kind of feels like things are getting stale here in Buffalo. They've gone to the AFC Championship. Then the next year they played the Chiefs in the divisional round at a heartbreaking loss. And then last year they have not heartbreaking loss really, but definitely broke the hearts in Buffalo to Cincinnati. Not even really a close game. Don't even really put up a fight in the snow, which is a game where you think Buffalo has the advantage, especially with a guy like Josh Allen, who he turns the ball over a lot, but he does things that, quite frankly, no other human being on earth can do. Like that, he probably has the strongest arm in the NFL. He's one of the 3 or 4 best running quarterbacks in the NFL, despite not having like the 4.4 speed that you guys have guys like with Lamar and Justin Fields to have. But the turnovers, and case in point tonight, they beat this Jets team pretty handily if he just takes care of the ball. 3 turnovers in the second half, 2 picks, mind you, all 3 to Jordan Whitehead, defensive player of the week by far. But 3 picks to Jordan Whitehead, and then you have a fumble on just a miscommunication. I don't know if it was a miscommunication with the center. He wasn't looking for the snap and just hits him, loses it. Jets get the ball in enemy territory and are able to go score off that Garrett Wilson touchdown, which was early candidate for catch of the year, by the way. Was fantastic.
Absolutely. But with Josh Allen's fumble, that was another case in point where he could have just got the ball, sat on it, and let him touch him there. Instead, he tried to pick it up and run with it, and he fumbled it again. And it's, once again, back to that carelessness, always trying to go for an extra yard or two. And eventually it's going to catch up to him, and it caught up to him tonight. This team has not been the same since Brian Daboll left. I know that their offense was pretty good last year, but we saw their red zone ranking go from 2nd in the league down to 11th in the league. And that was a year after Daboll left. You got to start to wonder, is McDermott that good of a coach? I really am starting to wonder whether or not this guy is made out to be, an NFL coach. He's on the hot seat, in my opinion.
I would agree. I mean, not right now, but I'm saying if things continue, like let's say they do even go out in the first round, like if they don't win a playoff game, and it's kind of gotten to the point now where like this needs to be a Super Bowl team this year, or I think they might just be like the Bills and Sean McDermott have mutually agreed to part ways. Real quickly before we get out of here, on the Jets side, Breece Hall looked fantastic tonight, had 2 ginormous runs. This is his first game back from injury after he tore his ACL and meniscus last year. He looked great. We saw Dalvin Cook gets in there a little bit as well, but then the defensive side for the Jets, I know that Josh Allen was careless, but the Jets took advantage of that, and that's the reason why they won this game tonight. And the kick return, fantastic. The guy, I'm blanking on his name. Go keep talking when I'll find his name, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, Gibson, the rookie.
Yeah, Xavier Gibson.
Stephen F. Austin.
But
Xavier Gibson, the Hard Knocks, heartthrob, I guess you can say. He was all over Hard Knocks. But yeah, we always talk about with the Jets. You always talk about Quinnen Williams, and I know he gets a lot of mention. But my God, his brother Quincy Williams had an absolute hell of a game. And I mean, what do you have? 13, 14 tackles, I think, in this game, 7 at halftime. That guy, I'm not going to say he single-handedly carried the Jets because Jordan Whitehead had 3 interceptions and there were a lot of other good plays by the Jets defenders. But man, he's an absolute standout for me in this game for the Jets.
Yeah, for sure. But that's going to do it for us. If you want to see the breakdown of all of the 15 games we broke down Thursday Night Football a little bit, maybe we'll cover it. I'm not really sure. But all of week 1 action, we're going to break down every single game. That should be out sometime Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, somewhere around there. But check that out. Go check out. We're going to have the power rankings week 1, crazy overreactions. We're going to have the Rams at number 1. The Bills are probably going to be somewhere towards the 30s. It's going to be nuts. So go check that out on Instagram. But that's going to do it for us. Peace.